Welcome back to the Whisper Knows. This is the place where stories don't scream, they whisper. Tonight's question is simple, and once you hear it, you won't be able to unhear it. What if it's true that the lake pulls people under on purpose? Not because they can't swim, not because the water is cold, but because something beneath the surface chooses. And if you've ever stood at the edge of a lake at night and felt the strange urge to step closer, you already know the feeling I'm talking about. Because some water doesn't reflect you, it studies you. The locals called it Black Hollow Lake, a wide, quiet body of water tucked behind pine trees and low hills, the kind of place you'd drive past 100 times and never notice until you heard what happened there. People drowned in Black Hollow, not often enough to make the news every week, just often enough to turn into a whisper. A boy on a summer afternoon, a fisherman at sunrise, a tourist who stepped too far onto a slick stone and vanished without a splash. The official explanation was always the same: sudden drop-offs, hidden currents, panic. But the stories didn't match the reports, because every drowning had one detail in common. Witnesses swore they saw the water move toward the person first, like the lake leaned forward. Mara Quinn didn't believe in those stories. She believed in facts. Mara was a volunteer diver with the county search team, trained, careful, the kind of person who could stay calm while everyone else fell apart. She'd spent years pulling bodies from rivers, canals, flooded basements. Water didn't scare her. What scared her were the things people said when they were desperate to explain what they couldn't accept. Still, Mara had rules. Never dive alone, never dive at night, never trust a lake that locals won't swim in. And Black Hollow Lake broke every one of those rules the moment she arrived. The call came in on a Sunday. A missing teenager, 16 years old, name Eli Bennett. Last seen at the lake around 7:40 p.m. Two friends had been with him. They were shaking so hard the deputies could barely get words out of them. He was standing at the edge, one boy said, not even in the water yet. The other nodded quickly. He just stopped, he whispered, like he was listening. Mara looked past them at the lake. The surface was perfectly still. No ripples, no wind trails, no insects skating. Just a dark sheet of glass reflecting the tree line like a flawless mirror. Then Mara noticed something that made her frown. Footprints in the mud. Eli's footprints went toward the water, but there were no footprints leaving it. And there were no signs of struggle. No churned dirt, no dragged marks, just one clean trail straight to the edge, and nothing after. "Where's the splash?" Mara asked. The deputies exchanged a look. "One kid swears," a deputy said carefully, "there wasn't one." That night, Mara walked along the shore with a flashlight. She expected frogs, crickets, that steady night noise that makes wilderness feel alive. But Black Hollow was silent. Not peaceful, silent like a room where someone is holding their breath. Mara swept the light across the water. For a moment, she thought she saw movement. Not a wave, not a fish. A slow shift beneath the surface, deeper than the light could reach, as if something large had turned over in the dark. They began the search at dawn.
Mara suited up with her partner, Jonah Rigg, a diver who joked too much and ate stress like it was candy. He tossed her a spare battery for her underwater light, then glanced at the lake and went quiet. "Feels wrong," Jonah said. Mara smirked. "It's water." "It's not," he muttered. "It's waiting." They entered near the dock where Eli was last seen. The water was colder than it should have been for late summer, cold enough to bite through the suit. Visibility dropped fast. Within a few feet, the lake swallowed the daylight and turned it into a dim greenish gloom. Mara kept her breathing slow, controlled. In, out, in. She followed the rope line, sweeping her light along the muddy bottom. Branches, discarded cans, old fishing line, and then a shape, half buried in silt. Mara's pulse jumped. She swam closer. It wasn't Eli. It was a bicycle. Rusty, bent. The kind of bike a kid would ride years ago and never see again. But what caught Mara's attention wasn't the bike. It was the way the mud around it looked smoothed, as if something had carefully arranged the silt to cover it. Mara motioned to Jonah. He hovered beside her, shining his light. Then his hand froze. Mara followed his gaze. There were handprints in the mud, not on the surface like someone had fallen. Pressed into the silt, deep five-fingered impressions that looked like someone had tried to push themselves from below, as if the lake bed had been a ceiling. Mara's stomach tightened. She tried to rationalize it. Pressure patterns, equipment marks, old imprints. But then her radio crackled in her ear. Not the team channel, not dispatch, a faint hiss, and behind it, a sound that didn't belong underwater. A whisper. Not words, more like the shape of a voice trying to form. Mara jerked her head up, scanning. Jonah's eyes were wide behind his mask. He made a quick sign with his hand. Up, now. They started to rise. Halfway up, Mara felt it, a tug. Not strong at first, just a gentle pull on her fin, like a curious hand brushing her ankle. She kicked harder. The tug returned, firmer. Mara spun, light flashing. Nothing there. No weeds, no rope, no debris. Just black water behind her. Then, Jonah's tether line snapped taut. He stopped rising. His body jerked downward, sudden and violent, like something had grabbed his waist. Mara grabbed his arm. She pulled. Jonah's eyes were frantic. His mouth opened around his regulator, as if he wanted to scream. And then Mara saw it. Not a creature, not a tentacle. A shape in the water, deeper than the light, like a shadow that had weight. It moved upward, not swimming, reaching. Mara yanked Jonah with everything she had. For one awful second, it felt like tug of war. Then the pressure released. Jonah shot upward so fast, his bubbles exploded around him like a storm. They broke the surface, choking air. On the dock, the team rushed forward. Mara ripped off her mask, gasping. Jonah stayed half in the water, clinging to the edge like he expected the lake to grab him again. Mara stared at the surface. It was calm, so calm it looked innocent. But Mara knew better now, because she had felt it. That pull wasn't a current. It had intention.
Back at the command tent, Mara checked their gear. Standard procedure: battery levels, footage logs, comms recordings. Jonah sat wrapped in a blanket, shaking. "I saw it," he kept repeating. "I saw it move." Mara didn't answer, because she didn't want to say what she was thinking, that whatever was under Black Hollow hadn't just moved, it had responded, like it noticed them and adjusted. Mara pulled the recorder unit from her comms pack and plugged it into the laptop. If the whisper was real, it would be in the audio. The file loaded, a timeline appeared. Mara hit play. Static, breathing,
the faint ping of gear, then the moment near the bike, a hiss, and then silence. Not normal silence, a clean, empty gap in the audio, like the recording had been surgically removed. Mara rewound, played again. Same thing, a perfect cut. But she hadn't stopped recording. No one had. Mara checked Jonah's unit. Same gap. She checked the backup. Same gap. 3 separate recordings, all missing the exact same seconds. It made no sense, unless the lake had done it. Mara laughed under her breath, a sharp sound that startled her. A lake can't delete audio. Water can't edit files. But the cut was there, undeniable. Mara closed the laptop slowly. Outside, the lake lay beyond the trees, still as glass. A deputy stepped in. "Ma'am, we found something." Mara followed him to the shore. 2 officers were standing over a wet object on the ground. A shoe, a teenager's sneaker, Eli Bennett's. But it wasn't torn, it wasn't worn from scraping rocks. It was clean, almost as if it had been washed, placed carefully on the mud, pointed towards the water. Mara swallowed. Then she saw the second object, a phone, Eli's phone. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. On it was an open video, paused. Mara tapped play. The video showed Eli at the lake laughing with his friends, camera shaky, the sun low behind the trees. Then Eli turned the phone towards the water, and the lake rippled. Not from wind, from something moving beneath it. Eli's voice came through the tinny speaker. "Do you guys hear that?" he asked. The friends laughed. Then Eli went quiet. The camera zoomed in on the surface. The ripples changed direction. They weren't spreading outward. They were gathering inward, towards Eli. Then the last frame froze on something just beneath the surface. A pale shape. Not a fish, not a reflection. Something that looked too smooth, too human to be natural. Mara's throat went dry, because she recognized the angle. Eli hadn't fallen in. He'd been standing at the edge, and whatever was under the lake had come to him. Mara turned off the phone. The deputy asked, "What do we do now?" Mara stared at Black Hollow, and for the first time in her career, she didn't have an answer, because the lake wasn't just hiding something, it was hunting.
The search officially resumed the next morning. Unofficially, Mara hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the ripples on Eli's video, the way the water had moved with purpose, not randomness. Black Hollow Lake was cordoned off, yellow tape, warning signs, a deputy stationed at every trail entrance. It didn't matter, people still came. They stood at a distance, staring at the water the way you stare at something you don't understand but feel drawn to anyway. Mara noticed a pattern by the second day. The lake was busiest in silence. When the crowd talked too loudly, nothing happened. When boats passed, nothing happened. But when someone stood alone, quiet, too still, the surface changed. Not dramatically, just enough, a tightening, a subtle inward pull. Mara tested a theory. She walked down to the edge alone at dusk, radio turned off, flashlight clipped but unused. The lake reflected the sky in dull reds and purples. She stood perfectly still and waited. At first, nothing happened. Then her ears filled with pressure, that same sensation she'd felt underwater, like standing too close to a speaker just before it turns on. The water nearest her boots trembled, not outward, toward her. Mara took a step back. The water relaxed. She stepped forward again. The pull returned, stronger. Mara's heart hammered. "You're reacting," she whispered. The lake responded, not with a wave, but with a sound, so low it vibrated in her chest more than her ears. A resonance,
like something massive shifting beneath a thin ceiling. Mara stumbled back, breath ragged. Behind her, a deputy shouted her name. The sound broke the moment. The lake went still, too still. That night, another person disappeared. Not a swimmer, not a trespasser, a deputy, standing watch. His radio was found on the ground near the shore, still transmitting static. His footprints led to the water and stopped. No struggle, no slide, just a clean ending, as if the lake had reached out and taken him by the ankle. Mara knew what they were dealing with. Black Hollow wasn't a place accidents happened. It was a place decisions were made.
Mara went back through decades of records, not just drownings, disappearances, car accidents near the lake with no bodies recovered, missing hikers whose last phone ping came from the shoreline, old rumors dismissed as folklore. Mara noticed something else. The lake never took more than it needed. Long stretches of nothing, then a cluster. Always one person at a time, always someone isolated, always someone who paused, as if hesitation was an invitation. Mara found the oldest map of the area she could find, before the lake had a name, before it was a lake at all. It had been a sinkhole, a massive collapse in the earth that filled slowly over decades. Locals once believed it was bottomless, and maybe it was, because sonar scans from past surveys showed something impossible. The lake floor dropped sharply, then disappeared into interference. No solid reading, no clear bottom, just distortion, as if the signal itself was being absorbed. Mara returned to the shore at night. She didn't bring diving gear. She brought Eli's phone. The video still paused on that final frame. She held it up to the water. "If you can hear," she said quietly, "you already know who I am." The surface trembled. Mara's throat tightened, but she kept going. "You don't need to hunt. People come here anyway." The water pulled inward again, stronger this time. Mara took one step closer to the edge. "You pulled them under, not because you were hungry." The lake responded with that low vibration. Mara nodded slowly. "You collect them." The word felt right the moment she said it. Not feeding, collecting, preserving, keeping. Mara realized something horrifying then. None of the bodies had ever resurfaced. The lake didn't give them back because it wasn't done with them. And the water around her boots was rising, not flooding, reaching. Mara dropped the phone into the lake. The reaction was immediate. The surface convulsed. Ripples collapsed inward violently, like something had lunged. The phone vanished. The surface stilled again. Satisfied, Mara backed away, shaking. She understood the rule now. The lake didn't pull everyone, only the ones who noticed it, only the ones who listened.
Black Hollow Lake was eventually closed. Fences went up. Roads were blocked. The area was removed from tourist maps. Officially, it was declared unstable terrain. Unofficially, everyone involved signed documents promising silence. Mara transferred out of the county 6 months later. New city, new job. She stayed away from lakes, from rivers, from any water she couldn't see the bottom of. But water has a way of reminding you it's everywhere. Sometimes when Mara stands at the edge of a quiet pool at night or hears the low hum of a reservoir beyond a dam, she feels it, that pressure, that attention. Because the truth is this: the lake doesn't chase people. It waits. It waits for you to stand still, for you to hesitate, for you to lean just a little too close. And when you do, it doesn't pull hard. It doesn't need to. It only has to remind you how easy it would be to let go. Because some water isn't meant to reflect the sky. It's meant to remember what sinks into it. This has been The Whisper Knows, and the next time you stand at the edge of a quiet lake, listen carefully. If the water feels like it's listening back, it might already have chosen you.
Subscribe if you dare to listen.